Great. Good evening, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages. We are here. There are three of us in town hall, and Bill nobly is in the parking lot, and Michelle is at home. So we have a quorum. So let me ask if we have anyone who wants to speak to privilege of the floor this evening.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any hands up. So in that case, we will go on to the agenda. So I sent out the revised October 18th minutes. The October 25th minutes are just, they're half done, and I can't manage to have a meeting every week and get the minutes done. It just is not a possibility in my life. So would anyone like to move the October 18th minutes?
I would move that we accept minutes from the October 18th meeting.
Thank you. Laura, any questions? All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. And Tim Murray, a town council report.
Hi, everyone. I am not sitting outside. I'm very comfortable inside. But I don't have that much to report, but you might be interested to hear that tomorrow night before the town board agenda meeting, we're holding a public hearing for the 2023 budget. Included in that budget is continued funding for our planning adventures. And so that should remain consistent for what we had in 2022. So if the zoning commission will continue to go into 2023, we'll have that covered. But we're also looking forward to moving whatever you might end up proposing to us into the next phase. That's all.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Anyone have any questions for Tim? No. Thank you. I can't remember the next thing, and I brought the wrong version. So,
Slaterville Springs Hamlet.
Slaterville Springs Hamlet. So would someone like to put the map up? I think
I'm happy to. I'll try to share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you.
All right, so hopefully you're seeing a map now.
Yes.
All right, so just to recap quickly, what is maybe visible or not is there's a blue line here, which was a first suggestion of some land to add to the Slaterville Springs Hamlet. Last week, I came back with a somewhat smaller proposal that we then modified into what is sort of a maroon outline here that comes down here. And the key features are that at this corner, it touches the Hamilton Road, which actually ends just slightly north of there. So if this were to be developed into a residential area, there would be an existing road at least this far. And then at the other end, it is over on top of Fuller Road, which there is an easement already on these parcels to allow the extension of that road. So that gives two accesses to this parcel here. And there is some potential rare species habitat up here and a small amount of prime farmland here included in this proposed area and here. But this larger part here, which is is about 11 acres, is what we are right now proposing excluding from the potential addition to the Slaterville Springs Hamlet. So that's my summary.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments about this?
Just thanks to Bill for putting that together with the acreages. That was interesting to see.
Yeah, I agree. I had gone and looked at it, but I'm not very good at looking at spaces and knowing how big they are. And
I mean, the comment I will add is as I noted in the email, and I did also look at it in person. So there's this area of prime farmland here, but it is not currently being farmed. It's clearly growing up in successional field. And I don't know why that is, but I would say, you know, the farmers are voting with their tractors. There may be some reason why, despite the prime farmland there, that's not a desirable area to farm. So while I suggested maybe truncating this up here at what I have as a dotted line, looking at it in the field, I see no particular advantage to that over the great advantage of being able to connect to the existing public road. So I will say that I am fine with the maroon outline.
Anyone else? Michelle, I think I see, I see a hand up, but I don't know who that is. I can't read it.
Janice Burton.
I'm sorry, we don't take questions from the public during this part of the meeting.
But since you called on me, Jean, I'll make a comment.
Okay. If you,
With this is Michelle. I think this is a good suggestion. What's happening? You know, I drove up there also, but I can't remember what's happening on the 11 acres that's closest to the you know, the road. Is that being farmed?
Yes, it is. And let me just actually, if I pull, let's see, I gotta move you guys away. So that's that 11 acres there. So, and this is fairly accurate to what's going on there right now. So I do not know. I think it's a hayfield. I didn't look at it that carefully, but yes, it is currently actively being farmed. So that's the 11-acre part, and they are currently actively farming this part, which again, the proposal is for the district line to be about here.
okay. And I will say that if someone who was watching and had his or her hand up, if you want to put something in the chat, if you want to make a comment, we could then read the chat. Thank you. So do I hear a motion to add this piece of property to the Sladeville hamlet?
Wait, I have another question. This is Michelle.
Please let me get a motion on the floor. It makes me so happy.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Can someone move
Okay.
that as a motion and then we continue?
Okay, and just, there is a question in chat now, Jean. I will read it. It says, did the owners request permission to develop their land?
No,
So, no, the
They-
owners expressed interest, but not developing, right? Jean, is that correct?
yes, the owners expressed interest in adding this to the hamlet.
And the original request, as I recall, we don't have a map of that or.
Yeah, that's this blue line here, Ernie. So
The
it
entire
goes,
Parcel, was that?
pardon?
Was that the
Yeah,
entire-
well, okay, so the entire parcel includes this region at the north that they did not put in. But this is roughly about where their line was, and they essentially took all the rest of the parcel, and whether this is in or out may not matter a whole lot because of the wetlands and stuff that are here.
Right.
But at any rate, the main difference really in a practical sense is probably this 11 acres down here.
Right.
So, someone want to move this as a motion and then we'll continue discussion? Did Bill do that? I can't remember.
I'm not quite ready to move this one. I want to have a little more discussion. I'm sorry, Jean.
It just,
I know you said something, but
it breaks my heart, but okay.
I guess the question, I'm in agreement that, adding to the hamlet is a great idea. I just wonder, should we draw the line to respect the property boundary that includes that little piece of prime farmland and wetland in the lower right-hand corner there, just because there's a property line there.
I think you're talking about here, Ernie. So, yeah, let me come in a little bit and see if we can. I'm assuming there's a property line there, so it looks like. I think that's what you're saying. So yeah.
Yeah.
So your suggestion is better to do this.
Yeah, just to avoid, lines being drawn in places that.
So, then I have a question. Is that all one lot?
Yes.
Yes, that's one.
Okay.
This is all one, and the parcel continues up here and includes this part down here.
And just for clarity to address another question that was asked about development plans, the person who made this request said, we have no plans at this time to develop this land parcel, but this would allow us to possibly do so in the future to help our farm continue. Also, they say that tax parcel is currently in the New York State Agricultural District, and we are making this request with the understanding that this would not affect the ag district status.
Right, and that would be true.
And yeah, that's my understanding as well. And then guys could confirm, and the ag district boundaries are changed periodically. I can't remember if it's every 10 years or 5 years or whatever, but, and then there is a whole process if like, it's not being used for farming anymore, for taking it out of the ag district and that sort of thing. But I don't think a hamlet designation would impact a decision to put it in or out of the ag district, because it'd be the actual practice on the land.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, I have,
well,
one.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Michelle.
Well, I thought one of Bill's options was extending that line out to Midline Road.
Yeah, we talked about that and folks didn't seem all that excited by that. I mean, that is an option to give an additional, but again, it does cut off some farmland here, cuts another parcel. So there's reasons not to do that.
Okay.
But it's, you know,
Yeah. I mean, I thought it might be beneficial to have it connect to Midline Road, but these other reasons seem to kind of outweigh that, so.
I mean, it wouldn't prevent somebody from making a connection. It's just-
Right, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
it's just-
Yeah, I felt more comfortable when there are two entrances to this area. Because, you know, I like to think about fire departments.
but as you know, there's nothing that couldn't say the person who owned this couldn't sell this strip of land to whoever's developing this. A road could be put through, maybe, given our zoning, if that is adopted, it would tend to try to avoid that prime farmland, but you know, it just depends. But yeah, that does not preclude connecting. It simply doesn't do anything to sort of encourage it at this time. I guess I'm willing to second Ernie's motion of adding this piece in here. You know, again, given that this is 4 acres, this is probably, you know, 1.5 or 2 acres of prime farmland. So we've already put this piece in there. So given the way to follow the lot lines, I'm okay with that. So I can second his motion.
Did you make a motion?
He didn't.
Oh, sorry. If Ernie moves,
Pretend that I did.
Okay, I have now heard Ernie make the motion to add this to the map. And Bill has agreed. I'd love to have someone move the entire thing now.
well, are we done with discussion of whether to add that or not?
No, but we can if you want. It's hard to vote on an amendment when, so we're adding it to discussion. That just doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
I have to.
Well, in other words, does anybody have anything else they want to say? And then shall we call the question on the addition? How's that sound?
Okay,
Robert's rules, Robert's rules.
okay. We're calling the question on the addition, I guess, is what we're doing. All in favor of adding this lower right-hand corner that is wetland and a little bit of prime farmland to this area that we are discussing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we're back to the main discussion, which is whether to add this piece outlined in mostly mauve and a little bit of blue to the, and Bill is drawing the entire thing in.
But it is, of course, actually on the property line, not this sort of sloppy line I drew.
Yes, to the hamlet of Slaterville Springs. Which right now, for everyone watching, is in, I don't know, what color is that? Dark ochre.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. This
Are
adds,
you looking for a second?
I'm looking for someone to move it.
I move it.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Michelle and Barb. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that is approved unanimously.
I have a question about the map.
Okay, and Mark has a question about the map, so
Where is Caroline Drive?
where is Caroline Drive?
Yeah, I have no idea. Good question.
I don't know what you're speaking of. Oh, Caroline Drive.
It's right here, going by the town hall.
I guess I didn't notice Caroline Drive. That's odd.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mark, isn't that what the name of the road is to the, apartment complex behind the town hall? Doesn't that
Oh.
have a name? It might be Caroline Drive.
To,
Oh,
to Fountain Manor? I think,
It's the Fountain Manor, yeah.
no, I don't,
I might have seen that.
interesting. I'll look.
I don't know. I have no idea where that appeared from.
Mhm.
Okay, in fact, I didn't even notice
I
it,
had not noticed that at all.
which is, okay, well, that's wonderful.
I can have Rick check it. I mean, the reason that there's a label on it is that because it's part of the road, the official road layer that we get.
Right.
So
Hmm.
that doesn't mean that it's not an error, but it's, it's recognized as something. So I will ask
Yeah.
him if he knows what it is from the data perspective.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you so much. I will let, this is exciting. Okay, so we've done that. And someone tell me the next thing on the agenda because I brought the wrong agenda.
Water resources overlay is what I have here.
Excellent. And this is the discussion we have had this last week about the water resources overlay, about what was an intermittent and what wasn't. And we went back to Rick. So I think Bill and Nan probably have the most information to give us.
Before you do that, just a clarification, according to Google Maps,
Uh-huh.
indeed, the little drive going back to Fountain Manor is called Caroline Drive.
okay, great. Thank you. There
It
we
seems
go.
like so much more of a boulevard than that.
Finally, I got something right.
Yeah.
We will make note of that.
All right, so with intermittent streams, the bottom line is the original water resources overlay map we had did have intermittent streams mapped, but no distinction in the mapping was made between intermittent and perennial streams. So they were all mapped with the same, we call overlay parameter, which was, I guess, 70, 100 feet or, whatever it was. Too many details to keep in mind. I guess 75 feet. 100 feet or 125, depending on which flood zone, or sorry, which water area you're in. Sorry about that, brain mess up here. So at any rate, so when we looked at the county data, there were a lot of additional intermittent streams, and that comes in part due to the finer mapping scale that the county was looking at. And so that was what we were looking at, and what we have decided is to stick with the USGS set of perennial intermittent streams, and not add in the intermittent streams identified only by the county. That means that compared to our original map, the actual water resources overlay will shrink slightly because the buffer around intermittent streams is a bit smaller than it was around perennial streams. So that map Rick has now made, and we'll all be getting a copy of it soon, I assume. So that's where that is at. I do have a few things to ask about the water resources overlay, but Jean, that was the summary, which is what you asked for. So I'm not sure what you want to do next.
I guess my question is, we don't need to finish this before we have the next public information meeting in terms of the mapping particularly, but it would be really useful to have it. Are we ready to go ahead, or do we need to meet again? Where are we on that?
I think we're ready to, we do have a map because Rick made it. Nan has a copy. She shared a copy with me, but I was letting, the official one's not out. What is waiting is some of our, our papers on the water resource overlay is waiting for something, but we actually have a map of the new district. We made a decision about what to do about the water overlay district. I think we're ready to go ahead with the public meeting. Because as you say, that the regulations for the water resources and flooding overlay is part of the meeting, but that map is not necessarily, though people will be happy to see that map, I'm sure.
Yeah,
So
me too.
I think we are ready to go ahead.
Okay,
after
want
we
me-
answer a few questions I have. Go ahead,
You
Dan.
want to see the map?
yeah, you have it?
Yes.
Excellent. Let's look at it.
And I'm just going to mention that 8% chance of rain is looking rather
Oh.
damp right now.
Oh, no.
Feel free to go to your car.
Well, no, Pete, Pete would probably, no, it's okay. I've got an umbrella over the computer and got my rain hat on.
People come to hold your umbrella.
No,
Yeah, that's right.
thank you anyway.
Um,
So this is the most recent map. It includes the new hamlet over here. It includes the area that you added over here. And the updated water overlay that is somewhat smaller than what it was before because of that change to the intermittent streams. So this is what it looks like.
Well, I will, kind of just remind people that if we do not include the county's intermittent stream data, there's a considerable amount of streams that is, not going to be clearly delineated by this overlay map. I know for a fact in my own backyard, there's an intermittent stream that does not show up on the USGS information, but did show up in that latest county information that Rick had included. So that's kind of I think the decision on the table that I think we need to all, kind of clearly agree to. I think that we've all kind of agreed to that via email, but just want to throw that out there to make sure that that discussion of that is done.
Mhm.
And I agree, it's a vexing problem to some extent and no really easy or right decision. Protecting more in a certain sense is definitely better in terms of water quality. On the other hand, this is the first time Carolina is trying to implement some protections of streams. And so maybe starting a little bit smaller is okay. So I hear you fully, Ernie, and I've mixed minds, but in the end came down on, there seems to be a good starting place. So.
Yeah, I will comment that I agree. I think the fact that it's, I don't want to make this so impossible that people have a very hard time figuring out where the source data is from. And I doubt this will be the last time that the town ever has to redo a water resources overlay at some point, because there is change over time with storming, and streams change course a little bit from time to time. And I would assume that.
And the USGS data will be updated at some point as well.
Exactly, right.
That's
And then.
Well, and the other thing that will definitely change is that New York State is going to be changing the wetlands rules. So they will no longer be 12.4 acres that are regulated, but 7.4 acres. So that will absolutely make a change.
Right, in
Yeah.
particular, because those have a buffer on them that we don't include for the county ones, or at least not as big a buffer, so.
Nan, when's
Michelle has her
that
hand up.
supposed to happen?
2028.
Okay. Which, oh, I'm sorry, Michelle.
Oh, well, I guess I agree with your comments about this map. But it doesn't preclude, if somebody was going to develop and you did what's the term, ground truthing, and you went and you found an intermittent stream, just because it's not shown on this map, it would still be under jurisdiction, right?
I don't think that's true, because the regulations for the water resources overlay only apply within the water resources overlay. So I'm going to assume, and this is where Nan can confirm, that if an intermittent stream is not included in the overlay, then it's not protected by the regulations.
Is that true?
Unless it was in a floodplain or in a wetland, was part of associated with something else that was regulated already. But yeah, if it's just an intermittent stream, it wouldn't, yeah, the whole set of standards in the abbreviated site plan review would not be triggered, for a development, that, you know, would be just on an intermittent stream. With that said, it's very possible that a plain old site plan review may be done, that the planning board is looking at the parcel, and one of the requirements of the site of a regular site plan review, if it's like some sort of commercial use, is to identify all of the natural resources on the parcel. And so in that case, it would come up, and in that case, the planning board could require citing of various elements outside of that, you know, any of those resources. But for someone that is, you know, just going to develop their parcel as a house, there would be nothing else to trigger any other kind of review for just the intermittent stream.
Well, that's unfortunate, but I guess there's, in a practical sense, there's been so much disinformation and talk about our sources that I guess it just seems if adding a 20-year-old data source just kind of adds to the whole brouhaha. And maybe we should stick with something straightforward like the USGS maps that are updated more frequently.
Yeah. Okay, anything else for anyone to add? If not, I'm assuming that what we had discussed, which is that we will go forward with the water resources overlay in this format, which includes the USGS data sets. It is okay with everyone. Is that true? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So terrific. That makes me very happy. Which I know is everyone's goal.
That's it.
That's what I thought. Okay, so we are now on to discussing the public information meeting.
No,
No? What did
no,
I-
I had several questions I wanted to ask. Sorry. One of which is basically to Nan, and the other two are to the rest of the zoning commission.
Okay,
So,
yes.
so Nan, what, you didn't know about this till just a few minutes ago. So, you know, so Nan, one, you know, concern that's been expressed by at least a few members of the public is, you know, how do they know which resource is in that water resources overlay? And so, you know, I have given some information that, you know, that obviously if one looks at the county GIS interactive map, one can probably figure it out. And of course, if you also own the property or on the property, you probably know whether that spot is a wetland or a stream or whatever. But in general, I'm also assuming that if a developer or someone who wasn't sure on their own property could approach the code enforcement officer, and the code enforcement officer would say, yeah, you're right, the overlay is on your property, and this particular part of the overlay is there because this part's a flood zone, and then there's a stream coming out of it. Is that the right avenue for someone to find out exactly, you know, what that resource is?
Well, it's certainly a place to start, and we could provide you with the individual layers that went into the overlay as just not part of the zoning, but just as a reference layer. Most of that, I mean, that data is available in any number of places now, but we could certainly supply the town with those layers, and so that you could identify it. But you know, anyone that needed to ground truth would have a wetland delineation done, or, you know, an engineer, you know, those things would be ground truth by a surveyor or an engineer or someone that would be designing their parcel. But from you know, for reference purposes, yes, the county website, the natural resource inventory, the comprehensive plan all have similar data. But if the town would like us to create, you know, either one map that's got the layers or multiple maps that show the individual layers just for reference purposes, sure.
And I think that might be useful. Again, what I'm, you know, is, you know, what's the easy way for, you know, a resident to find this out if they have concerns of, gee, I see it's here, but does that mean I can't build there because it's a riparian buffer, or I could build there, but it might flood, so I don't, I think it might be nice for us to have that. And I would think that indeed they would tend to contact the town clerk or the code enforcement officer where I would tend to turn. So it seems to be a natural place. So yeah, I think it's great. Tim?
No, I was just going to say that I think it'd be helpful to the code enforcement officer just to have that data on hand for reference.
I agree. The code enforcement officer would probably should be able to say that to people.
Is there
Yeah,
any?
and as discussed, I mean, there are resources available to the public outside of it, again, but at any rate, okay, so that was that.
Can I just ask one last thing? I already had his hand up.
Yeah,
Is it possible to include links to those resources in our document, or does that just do too much?
I wouldn't, if you put a link in it, then, I mean, what the maps that are referenced in a zoning law are officially adopted zoning maps.
Right.
So I wouldn't necessarily do that. I would make them, you could make them available for the public on paper at the town hall or on maps that you could look at online, but I wouldn't necessarily reference them. If we did, we would have to write a caveat that they are not the official map. They don't have any regulatory connection. The overlay is the map that's referred to in the law.
I guess I just feel a little uncomfortable with, oh yeah, you can find that. But we can't tell you how.
Well, we can tell you how. Like I said, I've already said that you can find it at the county GIS mapping website. I gave explicit instructions on how to do that. But I think in response to what you suggest, there's nothing that says that the maps given to the code enforcement officer, for example, the code enforcement officer couldn't put on the town website and refer people to them if they're curious, but they don't become officially part of the zoning document because that takes a public hearing, et cetera, to change. So that would be my solution to that, Ernie. Does that seem okay?
Yeah, no, I just, I mean, I guess I'm looking at it from the code enforcement officer's standpoint of, okay, I got this, somebody's asking me this question, where do I go? And, if we know where he goes, we should tell him,
Right.
as opposed to just saying, oh yeah, you can find that.
Yeah, no, I agree. The CEO should have the maps, and I think that he or she can decide to make them available. They should be available to the public, and whether that's online or just come in, I'll show you it. I don't know, but I agree.
I think the town in general needs to be responsible for links that they put up, that they control those links. The problem is when you put in a link to somebody else's document, the other people can change things or take things down, and then you don't have any control over it. And since you want things to be used well, such as life, or otherwise you have to go to the internet of the past, which is a place.
It is.
It is. It's kind of cool.
Don't go there.
Don't go there? Things happen?
Scary.
Okay, good to know.
All right, so is that a decision that the town will have copies of each individual component and to be decided how to host them? Is
Yeah.
that,
I think so, and I think you can put that in our report.
Okay.
Report.
all right, so then I have two more.
That's really an administrative decision anyway.
Yes,
It'll be ultimately up to the code officer.
right.
I have two additional questions or points. One is that language was added to the section 5.3 on the water resources overlay.
Yeah.
Explaining that, based on all this stuff like ground truthing, that, an applicant who says, the building I'm proposing actually isn't in the overlay that you're showing there because it shouldn't be there, can bring in, survey data to show that. So we've now added that clause. And my question is, should I add that to the explanation paper? Because currently that point is not in there because it didn't exist before.
I think that would be very good. Anyone else?
Yes.
Yes. There's seems to be
Okay.
general. Not
All right, similar question. Should that point be made in the slideshow? Movie.
Yes.
No,
No?
I think it just adds extraneous information that.
All right, so I've heard one yes and one no. Is that where we're at?
What do other people think? Yes, no?
If it can be done succinctly, yes, but not if it leads to a long video.
Right.
All All right, well, let me show you. I have added one slide to the video, so let me share that. Let's see. I wonder. That's not the right thing. That's not the right thing. This must be it. Okay, so there we go. So I added a slide. Okay, so sorry. So we talked about wetlands, like the components, and then I added a slide at the end where I added these points. I added that existing uses of land are grandfathered,
Mhm,
that ag uses are exempted,
mhm.
and then that we have posted, that section of the draft on the webpage, given the webpage, and so though, and so I just want to clear this last slide with you all because you haven't seen it. This will take 25 seconds. It'll be
Right,
this sort of thing.
okay.
And we could add the point about the other thing somewhere in here if you wanted it.
Well, being that this is only 6 slides long, I think that there's room to add it.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Okay,
And
yes,
Bill,
but
don't
keep,
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
was just saying, don't forget to add the newest map in that slideshow.
the slideshow is not showing the map at all.
Oh.
What's at the top?
That is in the, right, so because again, that would get, I mean, I guess I would, so you're right, I'm sorry. The very first slide, no one ever tell the difference, is the map, and I can certainly swap that out. You're right, I will swap this out because it has this thing on Beamer that might be noticed, so yes, thank you.
Yeah, and
Dan.
the date says May 11th, and the
All right,
actual
okay.
one you just voted on was October.
Right. Okay,
or
great,
today.
thank you.
Yeah.
I will do that. Thank you for that catch. And was that everything? And I think that was everything. And I just to say, so at this point, the paper is waiting on a detail map from Rick that will illustrate how the overlay relates to each of the 3 components. And once we have that, the paper's done, the slideshow can be recorded because then I can, sort of show how to find where the paper is and where the stuff is on the web. So nothing has been posted yet. And it's all basically waiting on that one graphic. But
Okay.
everything else is ready as it can be. And my intent would be that like all in the same afternoon, all the links go up and things go out.
That would be great. We are hoping to get, I heard from Velvet, and she's gonna be trying to work on the town newsletter on Monday. So, and what I will do is write something that says, you will be able to go to this place and look and find these things, and I will write that tomorrow morning and send it to you, Bill. And then I can make sure with, Michael that all of the links are correct when I give it to Velvet.
Okay, yeah, and I hope so. I mean, again, I just need to get, and we could do is put some dummy stuff in place, but that gets messy. So I'd like to have the real thing there. So as soon as it's ready, I will let you know.
Okay, great. Okay, so that's the water resources overlay stuff.
Yeah, and I am now done.
Okay, Michelle.
I have a, well, we voted on changing that, adding that stuff to the Sladeville Hamlet. So would you want to get an updated map that reflects that as well?
Probably it will become quickly. I mean, I'll send that what we approved to Nan and Rick tonight when I get home. And that change I assume will be quick to implement. But yeah, that's a good point, Michelle. And if it can get done in the next couple of days, I would think yes.
Great,
Not a deal breaker as far as I'm concerned.
yeah. Okay. Let's see, before we go on to talk about the public information meeting, Nan, I know, has been working on making sure that she has a document that she can give us that we can put up before the public information meeting. So how's that going?
It's done.
Yay!
I have a few little just formatting things. I guess the question is do you want it as just a clean version 2, or do you want it showing all of the changes that were made to version 1, or both?
I think a clean version 2 is just fine.
I mean, I think the public facing document is a clean version. if the zoning commission wants to see the marked up version, but at this point, I'm not sure I do, but anyway.
I don't think I do. It's too confusing.
Yeah, I think we need to read the new document and then we all have our own versions. If we find something odd, we can go back and look at it.
Yeah, and how will we communicate?
So. Yeah, so just to get to the clean version, now I just have to then accept the changes and then along with that comes, format, making sure their spaces are right and the page numbers are right. It's a little bit of work, but not much to get it into shape. I think the language is up to date.
Good. What I would like to do then is, as soon as that's ready for you to send out to people, to send it out, I'll ask people to read this. This is Articles 5 through the end. And if when we feel that we are, and give people a few days to read it, and then if we are happy, we will, put it up. Yeah.
How will we communicate? I mean, this is not gonna be a Google Doc. We can't put little notes in the side.
No.
Are we gonna have?
I think you have to put down pages and page paragraph.
Okay, all
problem.
right, so you have to kind of
Yeah,
formalize it.
yeah, if there's anything that you think is a problem, I think that would make sense.
And just for clarification, Nan, this document will be the entire document, starting with Article 1, correct?
It is one document.
Okay, and you've made the corrections that we have done, since completing in quotes. Articles 1 through 4, we have made some changes, there were some definition changes and so
Right.
on. So that's been incorporated.
Yes.
Great, okay.
Okay, thank you, you're right, what I'm thinking about is that this public hearing is really about Articles 5 on. More than.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's how
Actually,
you-
I would like this public information meeting
It's the
to
whole.
be about the whole document, and in part, that's because to interpret Article 6,
You
you need to know what the uses are
Okay.
and so on.
Okay, that's fine. So I would say, let's do that. We can do this by email. If we have to come in and have a quick meeting to say, we're gonna make these following changes that we have discovered, or that, we'll do that. And I would try to do it as soon as we can, because I really will have to we want to get the information up there for 2 weeks before we have a public information meeting. Oh, I see Bill. All right, no, it's Penny Roosevelt. Okay.
Yeah. So just two quick things. So following on what Barb said, I agree. I mean, that we should be putting out the whole revised document. I do think that we should be saying, and it's true, that this public information meeting will focus on Articles 5 through end. Not that that will probably matter. I understand, because people will talk about what is concerning to them. But I think I don't want those sections to go unexamined. So, and then talking about definitions has reminded me. So we have decided that, intermittent streams are the USGS designated intermittent streams. The document doesn't actually say that anywhere. I don't know if it needs to say it in the definition section, because then we're going to be capitalizing intermittent stream everywhere it appears. I'm wondering if in section 5.3 we need to say it somehow, but now I know that the Danby zoning law says, when they talk about their buffers, they say an intermittent stream is, the USGS one or the county one, or whichever one they chose. So how do we formalize in the zoning documents, or do we not need to, what an intermittent stream is? Perennial stream, everyone knows
Yeah.
what perennial stream is.
Well, I think you need to define it, and I think it just needs to be a simple definition that we'll get from USGS and use exactly what they use is how they define an intermittent stream. I see no problem with putting that in the definitions. Why would that be an issue? But that does, go ahead.
Then it begs the question, do you then define perennial stream as well? But that's fine. And I would just say that in addition to however USGS defines it, it has to reference then the USGS data set, because what differentiates intermittent streams, the county may not have defined them any differently other than I don't know how the county defined them, except the county mapped them because they were looking at a finer scale. And so part of the definition is which data set they appear in, it appears to me.
Yes. So that does remind me that is the one thing I have not gone back. So I have not gone back to capitalize every single word that's defined, which is a fair amount of work. So I still have to do that, and that might slow things down a little bit for the final version. Because that, I have to compare every word that's in the definition and then find it in the document and make it capitalized. So that is a fair amount of work to do that.
So Nan, what I would suggest then is when you've done everything except that, send us what you have and we will start reading. That makes
Okay.
a lot of sense. And
So now
then,
you're gonna add the two definitions we just talked about.
Yes, I will add perennial and intermittent streams. I will get Rick to make sure I get the right definition from the data set. I will tidy things up and send out what I have minus the words capitalized. And then I'll work on that as I can. So that doesn't change the meaning or anything.
that sounds great. Right, and we can, underline things in our own copy just so we find them. Tim Murray's hand is up. Up, you're on mute.
All right, sorry, I was just going to suggest that it probably doesn't matter whether things are capitalized for the version that you're going to put up for the public information session. What really matters is the final version for the public hearing. So
Good.
I would think that you should be able to just move ahead
Good.
already without doing that.
That's a great
Okay.
plan. Okay, so good. So just send us what we have and we'll move ahead on that. Okay, we are now going to go and talk about the public information meetings. I asked everyone various dates and I've heard back from everyone except Bruce. And the dates that everybody appears to be available are Wednesday, 11/16, which I don't think we'll be ready for because we mean having to have this thing up by tomorrow and that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Sunday, the 20th or Monday, the 21st, which is very soon in terms of the 2-week thing. Or Monday, 11/28, because we have this Thanksgiving thing in there. So I think that Monday, 11/28 is the likeliest day. I would really love it if we could do it on the 21st, which would mean that we would have to get something up, which maybe we could by November 7th.
My advice, just from having lots of public hearings in lots of places, I think you'll get some negative feedback by doing it the week of Thanksgiving.
I would agree.
I just think that people will, even if it's not true, there's gonna be someone out there that's gonna say you're trying to slip it through on the holidays when everyone might be traveling or thinking about the holidays. And I just think that's an unnecessary diversion.
Okay.
So I bring up the point Michelle brought up earlier, though, but this gets into the meeting format, is whether we're having two different days, one that's Zoom only and one that is in person only. You suggested, Jean, that maybe you're trying to think of actually being able to run a hybrid meeting at the fire hall.
Actually, at the Brooksondale Community Center, I know the fire hall
Oh.
doesn't have Wi-Fi. But I don't know if the community center does or not, but I looked up how many people it can hold and it can hold 237 people.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like 99% sure they have Wi-Fi at the community center. There are some technical issues of how you actually run a hybrid meeting, though, because,
Right.
we'll go into that. But anyway,
Do they have chairs and stuff?
They do.
Have that many?
They have a giant rack of chairs and that hall holds, it's fire rated to 237 people. Which is kind of amazing. So if people want me to, I will go ahead and see if that is available on Monday, 11/28.
So would you just do one meeting and have that as a hybrid, or going back to Bill's question, would you pick another date that would be just online like we've done in the
Right.
past?
Well, we could do that. We could do an online meeting perhaps on the Sunday and an in-person meeting on the Monday or vice versa. The Sunday, the 27th. Many people are able to be there.
So there's not any discussion about moving this another week? Right,
That's after Thanksgiving.
yeah, after Thanksgiving.
That is after Thanksgiving, Monday, the 28th.
No, but I mean. the
Another
week-
further
The
week?
week after that, I mean, to Nan's point, isn't Monday still part of the Thanksgiving weekend or not?
No.
Just-
No,
Okay,
No.
all right, so I'm fine, okay.
well, you got a lot of turkey. right?
how much do you eat, Ernie?
I just thought there was some dissension about the 28th. Okay, all right.
So.
I-
Tim has his hand up.
Yeah,
This is a question that I'm directing to Mark. Mark, because I'm unclear about this, whether the zoning commission would be, I guess if there's only one or two people, they would be allowed to do a totally virtual meeting according to open meetings law and our town law. Do you understand what I'm asking, Mark?
in other words.
Yes, I
non-
believe, yeah. So I think you, Tim, I think you're right. We went through this before, that if we just have to make sure there is not essentially a quasi quorum of 4 people present, if it's 1 or 2, or I suppose even 3, it would not qualify as a public meeting and therefore would not have to conform to the law.
Right. I believe that's true, but we just need to verify.
Yeah, so you just, for it not to be subject to open meetings law, you wouldn't want to have 4 or more members
In one place.
present at an announced physical location where the public could attend.
Right, and we're not taking any votes at this meeting. We're hearing.
If you're discussing town businesses, that's the key. I asked the Association of Towns, she said, it doesn't matter if you're taking votes or not, if you're discussing public business, then the actionable thing is whether you have a quorum present.
So if you don't have a quorum,
It wasn't a
you
public
can
meeting.
still have a meeting.
Well, we can raise that.
Yeah, so.
Let me think of this, Mark.
Some of this by on Zoom.
Remotely, yeah.
Remotely, okay. Okay, so hearing that, what do people think about having 1 meeting versus 2 meetings?
To me, it comes down to, in practice, can we actually swing a successful hybrid meeting at the community center? It's hard enough here at the town hall. We've got this fancy hardware. You know, and I've been sort of thinking this through, trying to figure it out, but like there could be a laptop with the webcam on, where if one of us is speaking, those of us who aren't there, that would be the camera we could see the face of whoever's speaking. But you know, what do you do when someone's speaking from the audience? And what if I'm at home and I want to answer a question? You have to have hardware that allows me to speak to the whole room. And all this is possible. You get an amplifier, you get speakers, you get someone with technical know-how. These are all answerable questions, but we need to answer them and know that we can pull off the technology to do 1 meeting. So I would tend to prefer 2 meetings because it's easy. You do 1 on Zoom and you do 1 in person, and you don't have to worry about doing both at the same time. But on the negative side, for example, it means that it's harder for me to hear what goes on at the in-person meeting because I'm not going to be in the room. And it's also harder for me to answer questions there. That's, you know, not a deal breaker, but I feel like I'd like to hear what's being said there, but you know, I just can't be in that room.
Okay,
And yeah, and you know, and I think it's something to consider because, you know, I think it matters. People are coming, some people are going to come and make a statement, and some people are going to ask a question. And, you know, I don't know. I guess I worry that if the whole zoning commission isn't there to add in each of you brings a different expertise and in-depth knowledge about different sections. How is that going to work? I mean, how do we answer the questions?
Yeah, well, we did it last time, but you know, we saw that in terms of different people doing the same presentation. Of course, it came off differently. So again, I'm happy to do a hybrid meeting, but I want us to work hard to get technology that works so that those in attendance in person can adequately hear and see those of us who are attending virtually, and vice versa. You know, I mean, ideally, someone would actually stream not using Zoom, but just get a camera and set up a streaming service. And, you know, all these things have been done in the past for other meetings, but we just haven't ever done it. And so I think we just need to think carefully through how do we actually run a hybrid meeting from there.
I have a lot of hesitancy about attempting to do that and thinking that we're going to pull it off well, because it's very hard.
I agree.
So let's plan for 2 meetings at this point and have one on Zoom where we can, I think most of us at least be there on Zoom somewhere. And I think that worked extremely well, and one at the Burkendale Community Center, because at least they do have access where we could set up a Zoom for a few people who can't be in the room and see if we can have some of those people answer questions, which I think would be very useful.
But Jean, you still, in order to abide by open meeting law, you
Right,
can
then we get in
only
trouble.
have 3 people three members of the zoning commission participating in the meeting in any form.
Right.
So right. So in other words, a fully virtual Zoom meeting is not legal under existing New York state law. It was at the time in the summer, but no longer legal under New York state law if more than 3 members of the zoning commission are participating in the meeting. And that, yes, that's,
So does that mean, can we have a Zoom meeting where some of us are here?
and we can have a hybrid meeting, but you would have to have, what I assume, just like a town board meeting, like this meeting, Zoom zoning commission meeting, you'd have to have a quorum present in person. Is that right, Tim?
So there would have to be 4 people in the town hall, and it would have to be accessible to the public as well. Right?
So what's the answer to
Right.
this?
Could we do a Zoom meeting, an all Zoom meeting, that only has 3 board members actually participating in the meeting, but the meeting is recorded, so that the other, commission members can at least listen to it afterwards?
Of course, sure.
If
Why
I,
don't we consider that?
can I chime in?
Well,
So, so to make quorum, you would need 4 members physically present. So if you had, say, 3 members here and the other 2 members could be remote, that they could answer questions remotely, right?
I don't know.
Well,
Pam,
so
what do
yes,
you think?
I mean, Mark, I think we would have to find out.
Mhm.
I mean, in terms of how the town board works, we could have the remote people don't constitute a quorum.
That's right. They
Right.
don't constitute a
But
quorum.
if there is a quorum, they can vote.
right.
That's
If
correct.
there is no quorum, nobody votes.
That's right.
Right. And so is that a problem that it is, there's no quorum? Like, again, we're trying to hold a Zoom informational meeting. So do we actually run afoul of open meetings law if there's 5 or 6 zoning commission members attending virtually, because it's a plain damn only virtual meeting? It wouldn't be an official, it wouldn't be an open meetings meeting because there wouldn't be a quorum present
Right.
anywhere.
Right.
But is that a problem by state law or not? I guess we might.
My understanding
Need some
is
advice.
that would be allowed, but I can confirm that. Quite.
I
You
would,
couldn't-
yeah, just confirm it, because this is, at this point, we do not want to make a mistake,
Right.
with that, because that's just a procedural
Yeah.
issue.
Be a mess.
And
Michelle,
if not, can't you proceed by just having a Zoom information meeting with 3 members of the zoning commission,
Correct.
providing an informational session, which doesn't constitute a meeting? And it would be, from my understanding, that would be totally unproblematic.
But then the in-person meeting isn't going to have a quorum either.
No, I
right,
think there you would,
has
you just
to.
have,
It has to.
yeah. Well, it doesn't have to,
Well, it
again, it's
doesn't
just an
have to, you're
informational
right.
meeting, but it
No, it doesn't
could.
have to. It doesn't have to. You're right.
Okay.
In fact, it would probably be more efficient if it didn't.
Michelle had something to say.
okay, Michelle,
Well, I guess I'm confused. Do we want a quorum or we don't want a quorum?
the problem we have is we have several people who don't want to be in a room with 200 people.
I'm one of those people.
Right, and that's 3 people at least. And we only have 6 people, so we don't have a quorum where we have to be indoors. We don't have it.
Right. But what Michelle is asking is, and sometimes does it matter? And if it does matter, which way do we want it to be?
I
Quorum
don't
or
think
no
it
quorum?
actually matters because we are not taking votes
Right.
and we're trying to hear information, and if it's recorded, it can be heard.
So is that what you're going to check on, Mark, is whether or
Yes.
not we have a quorum?
Yeah, I'll check on
Yeah.
whether,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
as I
for something-
understand it, like the
For something
question,
like for something like an information meeting, we are discussing town business in the sense that we would be presenting information on the draft zoning law.
right,
But that is the whole point. It's an information exchange meeting where we are presenting information, taking and answering questions. Is there
Right.
anything in open meetings law that would prevent us from doing that as a virtual meeting? And then
Without
does
a
it matter
quorum.
whether or not without a quorum or
Right.
with a quorum? Does it take a quorum? Does it not take a quorum? You know, that kind of stuff.
right.
And even if it's an in-person meeting, do you need a quorum? Because there are probably fewer, some of us don't want to be in person. And we may not have a quorum of people that will do that.
Right. And I think it's not a problem to have just, as you said, 2 or 3 people there. If it's not a quorum,
Yeah.
it's just not a quorum. It's not a meeting, and then none of that applies.
Right. Okay, so
You will need a quorum though when you have your public hearing.
Oh, sure.
Right.
yes.
Right. But
Yes.
we cross that bridge when we come to it.
Oh, yeah, we do.
But yeah, so we can do a quorum by the
That was just a town board
video conferencing law, so.
So we can do a public hearing with a video conferencing law.
Mhm.
So in other words, we could have let's think of it, just so we all know what we're talking about here. It comes to, I hope to God, December, and we have a public hearing. And we could have it here, or we could have it,
It
Yeah.
would probably be best to have it here.
because
I would think.
it has Zoom as well.
Yeah,
So we could have a public hearing here, and we could have 3 or 4 of us in the room. If we had 3 or 4 of us in the room, that constitutes a quorum.
Well, you need to have 4 of you in the room because I expect by mid-December, I'm not going to be sitting out here.
Okay.
So I,
Most of attendance be managed. I can expect that more people than there are seats at those pews will want to attend.
Right,
the public hearing, yeah.
this room is rated for 75 people, which could be very crowded.
I think we're gonna have to find a bigger.
But if we want to do it with Zoom, that's a problem.
well, again, I think these are technical problems that can be solved.
Exactly.
But it's going to take some work, and I don't know how to solve them, but there must be someone out there that does.
Okay,
Mhm.
so we will think about this, about how we do that. Let us now say that we are having, what I'm hearing is we're having 2 meetings. Are we still having 2 meetings?
That's what I heard.
I think-
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would be simplest, but we could start exploring the technology for doing it otherwise. But yeah, and I think the proposal was for Sunday night, the 27th, possibly for a Zoom session.
And then a Monday night in-person meeting, I think. So I'm gonna work on that. What I think we need to do is we need to have I think we schedule it for like 2 hours. We have a presentation of what the law covers. And we have, which would probably take in the area of 45 minutes to an hour, and then we have questions or comments limited to 3 minutes.
And how long does that leave for comments or questions?
That would leave about an hour to an hour and a quarter.
Yeah, I would shoot for the 1.25 hour part and maybe plan a 2.5 hour meeting. But the public hearing is where I think things will really get long. This may be less long.
The public hearing, when you had your meetings at the firehouses, those are 2.5 hours, I believe. And those are, in a way, they're somewhat shorter because there's no response. We hear what people have to say with 3 minutes each.
Yeah, but for the public hearing, as I voiced last time, it's just important that everyone get a chance to speak. So I would not want to end a meeting when people, occasionally the public hearings have been adjourned and then restarted on a different night. But I would want to plan on a few hours, and if there was only 2 hours, great. But anyway, let's getting ahead of ourselves with that. We should focus on the public information meeting.
People can also submit what they want to say in writing.
And they should.
Yeah, because there will be people who don't want to appear.
Absolutely.
So for the question and answer part of that presentation, do you want to, go back to asking people to write their questions down like we did the first time, which seemed, a nice organized way to do it, but we got criticized because people didn't like to do that. They wanted to stand up and say their piece. So I
would
think you need
prefer
to
that.
decide the format of that.
Yeah. I would prefer the written question because we actually got information out, which is the purpose of this meeting, is to do public information. We were able to conflate questions, put them together and answer those questions. When people use the time in the last meeting to make statements, we didn't get as many questions asked or answered. What do other people think?
I mean, I
Michelle?
think your observations are totally correct, Jean, but given the temperature and overall climate, I think I would still go for oral questions and unfortunately at the cost of lack of information transfer. I'm willing to be argued the other way around because I think we would get a much better information transfer if things were written down, but I understand the frustration from the other side of they can't say what they want to say, that we're acting as gatekeeper.
That's the frustration of one group of people. I've also had people say, I didn't get a chance to ask the question I wanted to ask. Or get it answered. Michelle?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I heard from numerous people that went to the public meeting that they felt intimidated. They couldn't get, they went there thinking they were going to get information, and all that was happening was a big demonstration, and they weren't able to get the information that they wanted. So now that's going to happen by having two meetings like this. That's going to happen at the in-person meeting probably again, but that was a problem, that people felt intimidated and they weren't getting information. So I don't know what you could do to correct that.
So I'm just gonna throw out an idea. I have no idea whether this is realistic whatsoever, but in group meeting facilitation, the way to address the issue that you just said, Michelle, is with small groups. So you split a big group in one big room into smaller rooms, or smaller groups somehow. So it's very, it's usually unproductive to have 200 people show up and have any kind of exchange of information. It's just not how it works. So I'm wondering, is there some way that we could, I don't know, a school or some other place that we could either do the presentation all together as a big group and then split up into smaller groups, where now that would be a problem because you're not all going to be there. I was thinking like a school, and each one of you could take a classroom and we could, have everyone have, 20 or 25 people in a classroom and have a more, controlled, intimate kind of discussion with a smaller group. But I guess that's difficult because we don't have enough people to man either the tables or the rooms to do that. That would be, a way to keep, because like when we do planning workshops, they're never in just a big room. We always split people up into small working groups. I don't know. I don't know how we would manage that, but that's throwing that out as an idea.
I like it too. It's actually something we could do at least on the Zoom. Because you can do that in Zoom, you can break into rooms. But that's probably not where the biggest issue is. The biggest issue.
No,
is-
Exactly.
It wasn't the Zoom meeting that was the problem. It was.
I agree.
Right.
But if we wanted to have more discussion, that's something we could do on Zoom. We can ask about the school here, but we do have that issue of not having enough of us available to be in the rooms.
There's no way I would lead a discussion with a bunch of people without masks. Sorry.
Okay. So,
I will do it if everyone in my group tests that day. And I'm not, I mean, that's what I've done. You know, I had a friend over for dinner the other night. We tested, he tested. I had a party. Everyone tested for the party. But, you know, I don't think that's actually going to happen. But that's would be the criterion.
okay. I think that we're, at this point, we have to go ahead with a presentation and having people make questions and make statements in person. I buy the argument that if I ask people to submit questions in writing, people will just feel offended.
Man, you just about convinced me that we'd be so much better off the other way because we actually get information out. But
Well, I'm not, what do people think? I mean,
Could we ask people to submit questions? By
Yeah, you can still do that.
And say we're gonna address the written questions first?
yeah, we can.
you
Let's
know?
do that.
I mean,
Mhm.
it's just-
yes, I wonder if we need to at least allot some amount of time, or again, just be willing to have a longer meeting. Because, you know, you hate to be the person who sat there hoping to have a chance to speak, and then 2 hours later, the meeting's over and you didn't get a chance to.
No, we
But
can-
yeah, I like your idea, Ernie.
You can alternate between the written question
Right.
and the spoken question.
We could do that. We could alternate between written and, the nice thing about the written questions is that you can put some together.
Yeah.
And that helps. You can get several questions answered in one swell swoop.
I mean, I'm being really cynical here, but honestly, I think a lot of people aren't interested in getting any information. They just want to demonstrate. They want to protest. So,
yeah, it's legitimate and people.
and that's legitimate. That's fine. But I mean, I don't think we have to go out of our, like, bend over backwards to try to provide opportunities for information when, to be frank, the public, the version is probably going to be a vehicle for demonstrations.
Well, I don't know. I keep running into people who do ask me serious questions and I answer them, and it's very interesting what the questions are, because as in all things, every time you think that you're telling people stuff, it's not being heard. So I keep trying. See me at the Brookton Market. I appear to be, very accessible at picnic tables. So,
No, people ask me questions too, but I think we just have to be realistic that probably that's not a lot of that's going to happen at the in-person public meeting, and just accept it.
So I like this idea of doing both ways of getting questions or statements. And I think we could keep musing on whether it should be, okay, we do 45 minutes of questions and then a half-hour statements, or whether we alternate or what. But I think that might be a way to let some of the steam out, but also actually have good questions come in. So I kind of like Ernie's suggestion.
okay, I think we'll try with that. I will try to write this up. Meanwhile, Mark is going to go off and try to decide how, by speaking to various people, how we can do this legitimately
The meeting stuff.
and not screw up tremendously. Nan, do you want a few of us to talk with you, maybe on the phone, about what should be in a presentation, a PowerPoint?
Yeah, I definitely would want to know what you want to highlight. We can't go through the, line by line.
Right, and I
So
don't
I would,
highlight so
I
much.
would want to know what you would want to make sure you're presenting and highlighting. So yes, however you want to do that, either via, another smaller group meeting, or everyone submit their ideas, just send them along via email. I don't know, but
I'll send something out tomorrow by email asking who would like to participate in a online Zoom with Nan and talk about this probably sometime early next week. Does that make sense to you, Nan? Or-
yes, yeah, I think, yeah. And then, I'm just wondering, if there's, I'm just still trying to think of, I'm not sure with a big crowd, there's any way to break it up to be more manageable. I was thinking, like, could you present, a couple of the articles and then question and answers on those articles, and then you move on for, present something else, but I'm afraid that would get you left off, off track by something happening in the first 5 minutes and you never get beyond that point.
Right.
So, but yes, I would definitely want to know what you want to emphasize. I think that maybe the presentation is, I think the presentation is important, but because we can't, because look at how long it's taken us, to get through to this point. It's very complex in terms of putting all of the articles together. So we can only give highlights.
Right.
So the questions that people ask, I don't know whether they're going to be developing questions from that presentation or just in general, but they come prepared with, well, I don't understand how the water resources overlay works, or, whatever. But yeah, the short answer is the sooner we can do, figure out what you want to highlight, the better, because it's, it's gonna take a little bit to pull that together. So
Zoom is likely to be either Friday or Monday is what I'm looking at. So I will send out something tonight when I get home or early tomorrow morning, and we'll figure that out. That sound good? Okay, we will do that. And then we will continue, Mark and I will continue to think about the public hearing as well, and how we're going to manage to do that, because I want you to ask that question for both things, about where we can do that and how we can do it, and a time frame that we can do it in. And that is simply where we listen. After that, we will have to have a meeting to consider what we've heard.
And Jean, just as you're thinking of the timing, we also can decide to leave open some stated time period after the public hearing to accept written comments.
Yes.
And so that would need to be specified and built into the time frame. And then we have our one or more final meetings to deliberate about revisions.
Right, and the final report. A big draft of the final report can be ready by then, and then we just have to, put in what we've written. So, good. I see an end in sight. It's a little bit over the horizon, but it's only.
yeah, and so don't forget too that you're delivering a report to the town board. Your finished product is a report to the town board that will include the process that we went through, the analysis that we did, a summary of the steps that we've taken, a summary of the efforts we've done to let the public know, and a recommendation, and then the zoning draft. So there's a little bit extra that you're going to have to read and review before it's finalized.
Right. Okay, and do we do that? Do we go to a town meeting and deliver that? How is that normally done?
I would say that it doesn't need to be the whole zoning commission, that it could be, say, Jean, you could take the report and on behalf of the zoning commission, submit it to the board.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I think that would be fine. I mean, the whole zoning commission could certainly go, but I think it could be just one person
Okay.
formally submitting it to you.
And then the fabulous part is we disband.
That's correct. That is written in the law that once it's submitted to the town board, the zoning commission ceases to exist.
I have wanted to disband myself for a long time. I'll be dropping the bands. All the bands will be going. So, okay. I see Tim and then Bill.
While you're still all here together and not yet rushing out the door, I'm wondering if this wouldn't be a good time for you also to imagine a potential date for a public hearing.
Yeah, I think I have sort of imagined this, and let me see what other people think. I think if we have these meetings on the 27th and the 28th, and then we came back together on even the 29th, where a few people won't be here, but I think we would still have a quorum to say what we had heard and see if or if there's anything major that we want to change. We could then probably schedule a public hearing. I would very much like to have that done, I think by the 9th or the 10th of the middle of December. Like that would be like the 15th. That would give us time to have that up. Because we still have to publish it again, right? Don't we have to have it up for 2 weeks? Yeah, and you have to put it in the newspaper. So I think we could have that by the middle of December, which I think then would give time for people to make comment through the beginning of the new year. We would come back together in that first week of January.
So you're thinking of a weeknight public hearing,
Yeah,
like on the 15th or 16th?
Yeah. that sound good? And then we would have, people would have a chance to send written stuff after that. We would come together again in early January, see if there's stuff that we feel that we should change. And move ahead. Bill,
So Tim read my mind, because this is exactly where I was going, because I know you had said like the 15th or 16th in the email you sent out. And, for me, I have a lot of relatives elsewhere. The first half of December tends to be really hectic, trying to pull stuff together to send away for the holidays.
yep,
And obviously if we get too close to Christmas, that's bad in general. So I am concerned about a mid-December date. I don't want to see this slide, but I think that it might be more comfortable to have a public hearing in the first week of January. But I just wanted to put that out there to see what other folks thought about that. Because again, for me, first 2-3 weeks of December are just a nightmare already. And if other people are feeling that way, then they're not going to want to attend a public hearing. So
anybody else? This isn't.
I'll just say that a lot of people travel the first week of January.
Yeah.
A lot of people, the first 2 weeks of January is really heavy travel, much more than before Christmas. Than the first
Travel, I agree. I think Bill is right. That is a very busy time. I think that
Is there any really a problem with pushing this off until January?
for me, there is. I'm going to be teaching in the spring and I have got so much work to do. I can't even believe it. I'm teaching a class, a master's level class for the first time in my life. Tell me now.
I think if we can schedule the public hearing sometime before December 18th. That's a full week before the Christmas holiday. I'm saying that I don't know when Hanukkah falls this year. Do we know that?
I can find out.
Okay.
Michelle put her hand up.
Michelle?
December 18th.
Good.
I'm sorry, I missed when Hanukkah is.
December 18th.
It runs December 18th through December 26th.
Okay.
So that may mean that the 17th is not as well.
Probably. No, it begins on the evening of December 18th.
Right, but in terms of just people making preparations.
Oh, I see. Okay, but it isn't really Hanukkah until sundown on the 18th.
Right.
Well, I was going to say, I would advocate to try to get this done before January. I think, people travel a lot at the beginning of January. The weather starts getting really bad. You could plan a public hearing and then we could have a snowstorm or something like that. I think it would just be better to try to get it over with.
And I think we really should also remember that people can make comment in writing. It's perfectly legitimate and it's often how public hearings are done, and people submit statements in writing.
And I agree with what I think Barb had suggested, which is that the public written comment be held open till something, in January, early January. I don't know what you want
Yeah,
to
we
use
could
for
hold
that.
it open for, 2 weeks after the thing or something like that, and then.
I mean,
So-
those of us who remember will remember that for the comments on the draft supplemental generic environmental impact statement, DEC had those due basically over Christmas, which is pretty much how I spent Christmas to New Year's, was writing comments on that. And I don't want to make people do that. But at any rate, I want to give them plenty of time after our public hearing to do their holiday planning and stuff and still have time to write some comments. And not that the public is listening, but I strongly encourage written comments because it is so very helpful to be able to go back and see what's been written as opposed to trying to read notes of what someone said. So I strongly encourage written comments whenever possible,
Yeah, even if people come to and say something, and
and submit stuff in writing too.
it's a lot better if they hand me something in writing at the meeting so that I have that to write down. Okay, I think we have,
Jean, one more thing just to think about. Some public hearings have a court reporter to take all of the notes. I don't know if you want to do that or not, just something to think about.
I will ask, I see eyebrows going up and down, so I believe that's a yes.
I think typically the town clerk does do that, right, Mark?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate and yeah.
Great. Actually, it's just that Mark couldn't make his eyebrows go side to side. It's really hard. Think about it. Okay. So, unless there's anything else to say, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. We are adjourned. I will be in touch, probably early tomorrow morning with some stuff about when we're gonna, who wants to be on a Zoom call with Nan and do some planning about this thing. The Zoom meeting and the PowerPoint.
Well, Tim has a finger up.
Yeah, Jean,
Okay.
I'm just wondering if, just so I can report, do you know when the next zoning commission meeting is going to
Oh,
be?
good question.
We don't have one scheduled, but I think that we should schedule one for, if we are going to have a public information session on the 27th and the 28th.
You had said the 29th.
Oh, the 20, November 29th, whatever, yes, the 20, yeah, in there.
Well, we're having a meeting on the 29th, but the public information meetings are 7th, 27th, 28th.
Right. I think what we should do is meet maybe on the 22nd. Not everyone can be here, but then we could go over the PowerPoint. Does that seem reasonable?
The 22nd and 29th.
Yeah. That seem good to everyone?
Probably, I mean, we could do the 15th and the 29th, but maybe that wouldn't get enough time to get the PowerPoint put together.
I don't think that's going to be enough time to get it together.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I withdraw that suggestion.
Okay, so the 22nd and the 29th.
Yeah, I can't do the 22nd. You know, I think I reported that earlier.
Yeah, you did. Okay, that sounds great. Okay, we are adjourned.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good night.
Night.
Okay.